In this video, we're going to look at the Section 2 objectives for the Professional Horizon 7.7 exam 2019, which is on the subject of pools. So there are a number of pool types, and remember that a question could be asked of you for any potential scenario involving pools. So you can have automatic pools or automated pools or manual pools or remote desktop pools. So it would be a great part of your understanding, a great approach for you to be quite clear about knowing what these are. Dedicated and floating. What's the difference between these? Automatic assignment, what you get. And of course, I'm mentioning all of these different things to bring them to mind so that you can make sure that you understand them. But remember also that there are some circumstances where you might be able to have one without the other, or one requires the other. So understanding the sort of relationship between them can be quite important. And things like entitlements and groups are going to be important to you as well, because you're going to be asked the consequence, for example, of a particular pool type for a particular assignment, and it doesn't seem to work, for example. So you're going to be expected to think about that. And also with things like linked clones, you're going to be able to, expected anyway, to understand the steps that are involved with allowing the use of linked clones as well. And with these technologies as well, there are some advanced storage settings, things like disk refresh and rebalancing. Get to know what rebalance, recompose, and refresh. Get to understand what each of these does for you in terms of storage. Also the 3D renderer, get to know the different ways in which 3D can be rendered, hardware, software, etc., and what the consequences of those are, and how you would set about configuring these as well. And also guest customization as well. How is that possible? Think about the sysprep, clone prep. Think about things like domain joins. They're going to be quite important for guest customization as well. And then when we think about remote desktop server hosts, for example, we need to then think about how do we set about preparing virtual machines for that. And remember, there are particular attention to detail that you need to understand. Should you be asked a question, for example, about putting a host in as a linked clone, for example. So be aware of that, and be aware of the roles that are required within the server itself to achieve it being a desktop server, and its 3D graphics as well on the actual host. Then start to think about the part that VMware tools play in this, because there could be something perhaps that works differently, that where the answer might be install VMware tools and the agent software as well. And then think about the organization of remote desktop system hosts as well. The idea, the concept of farms. What might you get in a farm that you don't elsewhere? What sort of thing might you be asked about that? A good idea to understand snapshots, because there could be circumstances that you'll be questioned on where the answer might be either to suggest a snapshot or to investigate an existing snapshot. Snapshots playing a part in this. And also you could be asked to deploy Linux machines in your VDI deployment. So it's a good idea to understand how to install the various components from Horizon View into Linux, and then see the part that these play. Now, I've got a few documents for us to look at, so let's have a look at those. So the first of the documents I'm going to look at with you is this one that talks about reclaiming disk space on Composer linked clones. Very important thing for you to get a grasp of how the storage is affected by all of the different technologies, including linked clones. So this one will talk you through that. The View administration guide is useful for lots of what we look at in preparation for this exam, but particularly if I scroll down to chapters 10 and 11, where 10 is about managing pools and sessions. So that came up quite a bit in there. So pay attention to that. Look at the different pool types. Remember we talked about automatic, manual, the RDS, etc. And then of course there's ones that look particularly application pools and farms and also remote desktop hosts. So lots of good reading in there. For 3D, good idea to get a grasp on the different ways in which 3D can be applied, hardware, software, etc. And also the options that you have. You can choose for an automatic option for your desktops, which means that it will apply hardware 3D, for example, if it's available. So getting to know those will give you good background for answering any questions about implementing or configuring this. And of course the next one is all about configuring. So it takes you about configuring, but also this one takes you into configuring for remote desktop hosts as well. This document, setting up virtual desktops in Horizon 7, if I have a look at chapter 3 on here, chapter 3 is all about preparing a virtual machine for cloning, and look at the very last one here, it's creating customization specifications, something that we spoke about earlier on. So it talks you through the process of customization specifications, amongst other things. That whole chapter would be very useful to you. If I go back to the start again and have a look at chapter 13, chapter 13 is all about managing storage requirements and reducing storage requirements. That will give you a good insight into the use of storage and what you can do, and the effects of linked clones and different underlying technologies as well. So preparing you for questions that relate to storage. And then the last document that I've picked here is setting up published desktops and applications in Horizon 7. If we look at chapter 3 here, notice at the end here we have configuring 3D graphics and things like that. So even more on 3D, because that's, if you think about it, that's the sort of question that can come up. But the whole of chapter 3 in here would be very useful. So in this video we have looked at the section 2 of the objectives, which are creating and configuring pools. In the next video we're going to look at section 4 objectives, which relate to configuring and managing Identity Manager, where we'll look at its installation and its management. In this video, we're going to look at section 4 of the objectives for the Professional Horizon 7.7 exam 2019, where we're going to look at the configuration and management of Identity Manager. So this is configuration